Hey everybody! Ah, dang it, I did it again!
Oh!
Surprise!
Surprise!
Yay! Good evening, everybody. I'm Jess. I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, the House of Meeple, aka Joe and Abby. Good evening to you.
Hello!
How
Hello.
you both doing tonight?
Doing fantastic.
Good, good,
Yep.
good. And today we are joined by the wonderful game designer of games such as Fire in the Library and Kabuto Sumo. It is Tony Miller. Hello, Tony.
Wow, a whole cheering section. I'm not prepared for that.
It's what we do here. We turn it up just that little bit.
I will endeavor to not get used to it, but I will enjoy it while I'm here.
Yeah, friends, I had this whole okay, Tony, stay backstage, mute your microphone. It's just gonna be me and Joe and Abby, and then we're gonna do this elaborate thing. Yes, I pushed the wrong scene selection, but we're here. Please turn Phantom down a lot and Tony down a little. Oh, okay. Thank you for that, Slivers. I will make sure to do that. So Joe, Abby, how was your weekend?
It was
Oh, you're
good.
doing it, Joe. Look at you.
Yeah, I know. It's like I'm on top of things behind the scenes.
30 seconds early, Quaid. I know, right? It's hard to be punctual, but we're doing it tonight. So thank you all for doing that. Yeah, good evening.
But yeah, our weekend was good. We went to Seattle on Saturday to a get together at Blue Highway Games, and Quinn Brader was there demoing Rebuilding Seattle, which was super fun.
Oh, cool.
Got to meet him during Shucks, but it was, everything was moving a mile a minute. He was working, I was working, and it was a quick hello, but it was nice to actually talk to him and get to learn the game from him, and he signed our copy, and it was a good time.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very good.
Joe still needs to get turned down lower. Silver's
more.
ears are bleeding.
Jeez.
Wow. Bleeding
Okay.
ears.
Not to be
Bleeding
dramatic,
ears.
but
Be dramatic, but jeez.
Not to be dramatic. All right, I've turned myself down even more. Hopefully
Well,
that's better.
I'm hoping I do not result in any bleeding ears. That would be most unfortunate.
Yeah. Panda, check your Discord, says Quaid. Abby can be turned down a little too. You know what? I'm just gonna do it over here too, so it's fine.
oh my gosh, is
It's fine.
everybody having volume issues?
Yeah.
What is happening?
What-
I'm just
Tony, did you move your microphone?
No, I have not moved my microphone. I am just
Oh.
very loud generally, so I usually stay away from my microphone.
Welcome in, Dreadnought. Could there be 4 cooler people in one stream? I don't know, but I appreciate that compliment.
Yeah, we'll take
Yeah.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
at least 3/4 of us fit that definition.
We'll let
Wow,
you
who's-
decide
who-
which one's
yeah.
I was like the one.
We'll let you figure out
You pick.
we'll let you figure out the outlier.
As long as it's not decided by throwing a pool cue into the middle of all of us,
Yeah.
I think we're okay.
I think we're okay.
Oh, too funny.
Okay, so cool. You all had a wonderful weekend. Tony, how was your weekend?
Weekend was really good. It's been really busy at work, and having a little bit of a break from that has been wonderful.
Nice.
As a family, we've been playing the video game Cult of the Lamb.
Oh,
I don't know
That's
if
a
you
good
guys
one.
are familiar with it at all, but
Yes.
yes, we've been playing it together as a family, which has been very enjoyable. Then there was an animation that was released this past weekend. I think it was Mashed did an animation for Cult of the Lamb that was just this thing they surprised the devs with, and it's absolutely hilarious. So that's been kind of on constant repeat in my house as well.
yeah. I love it. James says the families that cult together stay together.
Facts.
Abby had some enjoyment with
that's
that streaming.
I did.
That's really cool. Really, really cool. Quaid asks, Tony, are you naming all your cultists after family and friends?
Oddly enough, my son is the one naming all of them at this point, and so far we have 4 turtle cultists named Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo. Because
Yes.
of course we do.
I love
And then we have a green cultist. I do not know the animal type, but it is named Shrek because of course it is. And then there's just all the turtles are color coded. They aren't green. They're color coded for their bandanas.
Okay.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, he's having a blast creating the villagers and changing their names and all of that wonderful stuff. No Venus yet, no. Not yet. I'm open to there being a Venus. There's absolutely no reason not to have one. But we do not have one as of yet.
Too funny.
He doesn't like renaming the bosses, though. I don't know how familiar anyone is with the game, but when you defeat the mini bosses, they turn into villagers that you add to your group. And he doesn't like to rename them because he wants to remember that they were the bosses that he defeated in the past.
I
But
love that.
Any villagers we
That's
find
awesome.
otherwise, he's got names and all sorts of wonderful. He sits there with the character color generator to change them all and everything.
That's awesome.
So,
Very
but yeah, they're all pop culture references that a 10-year-old would love. So,
Oh, I love it.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, Tony, before we get diving deep into who you are, what you do in this gaming space, why don't you give your identifiers, like your job title, your pronouns, and yeah, just a little introduction and who is Tony Miller?
okay. I am Tony Miller. My pronouns are he, him. My job title, it depends on exactly where you're encountering me. I am a game designer. I am also a game publisher in this sphere to some degree. I'm mostly the shipping department for a game publisher, but I am one half of New Mill Industries, so I'll give myself the publisher title. In my day job, I'm basically an IT firefighter. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of detail other than when things don't work, they call me. I hop onto a video chat much like this and work with other very intelligent people to make things stop being on fire. And that's kind of my day job. So
Very cool, very cool. Getting some shouts. James says Tony is Tony.
yes, I agree with that assessment.
And Panda says, woohoo, Tony is awesome.
Oh, Panda, you're awesome.
James says he loves Union Station.
I love Union Station too. I am so proud of that game. Travis is a genius, and I was so just shocked that we got the opportunity to publish it. No, I can't say enough good things about Travis or that game. I love Union Station.
Yeah. Quaid says your job seems less hazardous than an actual firefighter.
Yes, I would say so. There is less chance of death, although there is probably a higher rate of suicide. That's really dark, but it's
awesome.
there's a lot of days where you just kind of want to log out and disappear.
Yeah.
But
Fair.
yeah, it's definitely less hazardous than actual firefighting. Those people are like a whole other level, like living,
True.
breathing superheroes. That's nuts.
True. And Dreadnought says that you were the Mark Boone Jr. cosplayer. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Mark Boone Jr. cosplayer. I think I'll need Dreadnought to elaborate on that one a bit.
Okay.
I mean, I just Googled him, and yeah, I could see that.
Oh, is there a resemblance?
Oh, yeah,
Ah.
there is.
All right, let's see. Mark.
Who is this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Who is
right?
Mark
Like-
Boone.
So he was in Sons of Anarchy. Looks like
Okay.
a few other things.
Oh, I know
Couple
Mark Boone
movies.
Jr. Okay, I know him. Yes. Okay, I'll take that. That's acceptable.
That's acceptable. I
That's
will
not
take
my. Well, I'm just saying that's not my favorite celebrity comparison.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm digging this one though. Like he was in Batman Begins as what is the detective's name? I can't remember. Oh well. I'm totally failing on my Batman checks right now. And we're even rewatching Batman the Animated Series, and I'm totally screwing this up. But no, very cool. No, the best one I've gotten so far, Bullock. Yes, thank you. Bullock. No, the best one I've gotten is Jack Black, but that's been a while at this point. That was a while ago, and many layers of beard ago.
Okay. Nice.
But no, I'm digging that one.
Yeah, keep that in the back of your mind. Like, I'm also a Mark Boone Jr. cosplayer. Add that to your resume.
Yes. Hey, why not? Why not?
Why
There are
not?
worse things.
So friends, if you have any questions for Tony, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Otherwise, myself, Joe, and Abby are going to be doing some roundtable questions. So I will toss it to Abby. Take it away, my dear.
So how did you get into board gaming?
Oh, wow. So this is fun because on my old podcast, this is what we used to always ask everybody as their first question. And everybody kind of gets into board gaming in different ways, but almost everybody starts with the whole, well, you know, when I was younger, I played all the usual things, Monopoly, Sorry, Scrabble, blah, 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 blah. And all of that is true for me, too. I played all of that stuff. We played a lot of trick-taking games in my house. I played a lot of spades growing up. Specifically, and then euchre. Once my family had decided I had graduated to the teenage table, and euchre was no longer. I was no longer going to destroy people by being their partner. Once I was acceptable, then I could play euchre with everybody. But probably and I think I've told this before in other places, but I'm going to mention it again because it's still one of my favorite games of all time. My father got tired of playing Clue with me and decided he needed something else. So he went into a store, and the helpful people at the store recommended that he pick up a copy of Sid Sackson's Sleuth.
Oh.
And we played Sleuth, the old 3M like bookshelf box version in weird aqua coloring. We played that game until you could not read the cards.
Wow.
And my dad was so happy to not be playing Clue at that point that it didn't matter. It's not that he hated Clue; it's just that there's only so much Clue an adult can take.
Yeah.
And so we played Sleuth until it kind of fell apart. And then I kind of drifted away from gaming in high school, got more into music. And then when I got into the Army, which may come as a surprise to anybody who only sees me in my current hirsute persona, but when I got into the Army, it was one of the things that everybody was doing was gaming, primarily role-playing games at that time. But I ended up getting into the original non-LCG, the collectible card game, Game of Thrones card game from Fantasy Flight Games.
Ooh, okay.
And I was playing that all over the place, like actually going to like tournaments in various locations all over the place, and was active in that community and on that forums for a while. And then we were at one of my friend's house playing D&D. My wife's a big role player, so we were both in the same group. We were playing D&D, and of course we had the adults who do not show up for D&D game night because of other social obligations, and now we don't have enough people to play D&D. And that ended up with us playing Race for the Galaxy and Descent and various other board games that the DM happened to have on hand while we were not able to play. So any night we weren't able to play, we played board games, and eventually life got even more busy for me, and I had to do even more adulting, and board games fit into the space easier than role-playing games and coordinating schedules and meeting up in person and all of that stuff. So board games kind of became it. The first first modern board game that I bought that I didn't just have on hand from when I was a kid or a teenager or things that we acquired over time was actually Pandemic, because I'd never had a co-op game, and my wife loved the idea of us playing together on the same team. We like team games for that reason, and we usually play together because we are very good as a team, and we were very good at Pandemic. We were continually upping the difficulty and everything until we were playing with almost the full suite of Epidemic cards before we started getting other games to add to the collection of modern board games. I think Sentinels of the Multiverse was the second one. Yet again, another cooperative team game that we could play together.
Nice.
So, yeah, I really like co-ops. She really likes co-ops. We don't get to play them very much anymore, but we kind of live life as a co-op most of the time. So it works in games too.
That's sweet. That's really sweet. Joe.
All right, co-op, or I think you touched on it a little bit, but co-op or competitive, what do you prefer?
It actually depends on the audience. I like both. One of my favorite games of all time is Netrunner, and you can't get much more competitive than that. But at the same time, like, I really like Sentinels of the Multiverse. I also really like the BattleCon series. Usually competitive games, I really like head-to-head dueling games. Two-player competitive games are probably my favorite kind of competitive games. But I play pretty much anything. And having Raphael, my son, in my life has increased the level of anything that I am willing to play at this point. So it really doesn't matter to me most of the time what the game is. It's much more about who's at the table. And I tend to choose my games based on what the other people at the table will enjoy doing with me.
Okay.
I've got to kind of bribe them to hang out, you know, so just, you know, you can't just make time to hang out with people anymore. There has to be an activity. So it might as well be an activity that they enjoy. Since I really don't care, I just want to hang out with them.
Yeah, I definitely know that feeling. Like if we try to get people to play games, like, all right, what do you want to play? Like, it doesn't matter. We just want to play games.
Yep. Anything. Omni gamer at the core. I like goofy dexterity games. I like silly kids games. I have really fallen out of practice with role-playing games of any variety. The only game type that I haven't really ever gotten into very heavily are miniatures games. Just hasn't ever, I mean, I've played them before, but I don't tend to be a specific, what's the word I'm looking for? Lifestyle gamer. Like I never got into Magic. So I don't have a whole bunch of Magic cards sitting around. I've never been very heavy into to CCGs or minis games in general, but they're all cool. I like looking at all the paint jobs that people who are more artistically inclined than me can come up with. I could watch other people paint minis, or look at like all of the finished miniatures and just like lose my mind at how cool they are. My son and I watch crafting channels on YouTube a lot.
Nice.
Okay.
That's awesome. Very inspiring too, sometimes.
Oh yeah. No, it's human beings can do some of the coolest stuff ever. Like people who can make art blow my mind. My wife in college she had 2 degrees, and she was in there for philosophy and studio art. And so a lot of the walls in our house actually have paintings that she painted in college.
Wow.
That are incredible, and I am absolutely in love with them. But it's one of those things where that's something that I have never been gifted with. Words, ideas, brainstorming, I can do that all day, but actual crafting, the coloring we are going to do on this stream is the like most enjoyable form of crafting that I usually get up to.
Yay. So. Well, continue to color while we chat, Tony.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And while I do that, I will ask a question from the chat. James asks, what is your favorite cube, rails, or train game?
Oh, man. I'm glad you split that up, because there is there are different answers. So probably my favorite train game is a game called Mini Rails. I absolutely adore that game because every player can be like, all of the meat of that game is the interactions between players. It's just as simple as lay track, buy stock. You are going to do those 2 things every turn, and that's it. But where you place it, how you place it, who you decide to work with, who you decide to work against, all of that stuff is just emergent in the gameplay. And the first time I played it, it kind of blew my mind. I absolutely fell in love with it the first time I played it. So that's probably my favorite train game. My favorite Cube Rails game, I would be inclined to say Union Station, but I'm not going to. Because we've already mentioned it. So I will probably say Irish Gauge. And this is one of those, it's a good game. It's a great game. I don't want anybody to think that I'm downplaying how good of a game it is, but this is one of those nostalgia picks because this is the game that introduced me to Cube Rails. And it was Daniel Newman and Travis cornering me at a convention and going, so I'd like to pitch Union Station to you, but you need to play a Cube Rails game so you have a frame of reference. This is a Cube Rails game. And so I sat down and played it and was like, oh yeah, this is great. It didn't hurt that I won in a 5-player game. And I'm fairly certain that I cheated. Because there's no way that I walked into a game with all of these sharks and won legitimately. So either they let me win or I broke a rule somewhere unintentionally. Steve and I have that in common. Tease Steve, cheating Steve.
Mm-hmm.
We both unintentionally break rules from time to time, not maliciously, but just out of sheer accident. So I'm convinced that must have been what happened, but it was a really, really close game. So I don't know if they just purposefully miscounted and gave it to me. I don't know. But it was a really, really good game. And I've played it since multiple times. Absolutely love that game. It's really, really good. But yeah, Mini Rails and Irish Gauge, those two games, I cannot recommend them enough. I love both of them.
Awesome. Abby?
Oh my gosh, my brain spasmed. Hold on. You gotta reset it. James also wants to know, are you planning on publishing more games soon?
More games? Absolutely. If you look at the New Mill Twitter account, which is the best place to get information about what we're doing in New Mill Industries, Daniel, I think it may also be on his account, but Daniel just recently posted our upcoming schedule, and rather than make you go and look for it, I will pull it up here real quick. We have several games that are coming out. We don't like to plan more than a year ahead because we are trying to do the whole punk rock publishing thing. So our next game that's coming up is actually coming up in April. We're doing Tall Tales from Rand Lemley. It is a trick-taking game. It is a trick-taking deck builder. That's very, very cool. So as you play, you'll be adding cards to your discard pile, which then, based on how you do in the tricks, you'll be adding cards to your discard pile, which will change the composition of your deck. Yeah, there we go. New Mill Industries is the website. And on Twitter, we are, let me actually tell you the name of the Twitter account. It's at @new_mill. So at NEW_MILL.
There we go. Abby's got it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that's what we're doing. Go ahead.
I was say James said that I hate trick takers, and I do, but I love deck builders. So
we'll see.
If I hate, I'll play it.
I love trick taking games. Like I said, I grew up on Spades and then Euchre, and I have not met a trick taking game that I don't enjoy on at least some level, even if it's just intellectually understanding the twist that the designer has thrown into it. So if you don't like trick takers, the rest of our upcoming schedule probably not so exciting for you, because we're kind of shifting to do a bunch of trick takers over the next couple of years because they're one of the easier games for us to do as a small publisher. So in September of this year, we're releasing 2 of Taiki Shinzawa's trick-taking games. Specifically, we're really releasing Zimbabwe Trick as Inflation and Dwa as Charms. We're retheming both games, but we're releasing them in English really for the first time. if you don't know Taiki, Taiki Shinzawa has designed so many incredible trick-taking games. Every time I think I've seen everything there is to do in a trick-taking game, he does more. Several of the trick-taking games that All Play Board Game Tables has released recently are his. 9 Lives and Ghost of Christmas are both based on his designs. So
And as
truly
interested,
awesome
you
stuff.
might have a streamer in mind there, Tony.
Cool. Truly awesome stuff. I love it. In January of next year, we're releasing a game from Daniel Kennel called Naughty Gnomes. That's what its current name is. We're probably going to end up retheming it. But it's a really neat trick taker. And then in May of next year, we've got a couple of additional Japanese designers who are going to be releasing their games in English with slight rethemings and English rules and all that other good stuff. But Daniel is very much into the trick-taking market over in Japan. Trick takers tend to be really popular over there because they really like small boxes, because they don't have a lot of space to store large board game collections unless they come in small boxes. As somebody who's also a fan of trick-taking games, I can relate. I also, okay, this is kind of a tangent, but it's a funny story. So when the pandemic first started, Daniel and I were both lamenting the fact that we weren't going to be able to go to conventions anymore for a while. We weren't going to be able to pitch games for a while. We had no idea what we were going to do to stay involved in gaming. And one night I had a dream that I had started Bearded Rogue Publishing. And that I had different sizes of designs that I was publishing, and each one had a specific box size and everything. But the ones that had taken off the best for me were my small card game line that were called Daggers. All of them are named after Rogue's tools, because of course they are. So I had a Daggers line of games. They were small card games that you could carry multiple on your person, potentially even conceal. So they were my Daggers line. And I told Daniel about this. I was just joking. I was like, so I think, what do you say? We start publishing some stuff? And he didn't initially take me seriously until a little bit later on. He messaged me and he's like, we both have designs that we think are ready for publication, right? Could we maybe publish those? And this was apparently how everything started. But yes, I had a dream about running a publisher that published mostly trick-taking games, and now I'm going to be publishing a whole bunch of trick-taking games over the next 2 years. So
Are you calling them your Daggers line?
we are not. We are not.
Oh no!
The rogue stuff is all my branding. Daniel is his own thing. He's more necromancer than rogue. So, so the two of us are a little bit. We're aligned in the same adventuring party, but not the same exact aesthetic.
Nice. I like it. All right, Joe, what you got?
All right, this one comes from Quaid Rain. Is your game design methodology theme to fit mechanics, or mechanics to fit the theme?
So this is a tough question, because I've designed games with both inspirations coming first. The most common thing that ends up happening is I have like a list of themes that I really like, that I think are neat, that nobody's done before. And I have a list of mechanisms that I think are really neat that I'd like to play around with or try. And so both of these just kind of live in my head at all times. And then at some point, I will be working on one, whether it's a theme or a mechanism, and I will have some sort of an epiphany that somehow connects two disparate things. So it's like walking around with a bunch of chocolate and a bunch of peanut butter, and periodically lightning bolts will hit and you get Reese's cups.
I love that analogy.
It's kind of the best way I can describe it. Once the game starts being built, once you have both the theme and the mechanism and you're kind of tying them together, I found that trying to enhance those ties as much as possible, like fitting them together everywhere you possibly can, is great. I do have very messy pockets. That is correct. With that much chocolate and that much peanut butter, I don't know. If you were to try to visualize the inside of my head as a pair of pants, it would indeed have more pockets than you could possibly fathom.
Oh, that's so funny.
Like we're talking like not just cargo pants. Like it would be like, are you guys at all familiar with comic books?
A little bit, yeah.
The old 1990s Rob Liefeld characters who are literally just covered in pouches.
Yeah.
That's what my brain would look like. Like there's no way they could conceivably have enough things to fill all of these. Why are they wearing them all?
Yeah.
That's kind of what the inside of my head looks like.
That's funny.
But yes, the two games that I'm probably best known for having designed, Fire in the Library and Kabuto Sumo, both kind of started Mechanism first. With Fire in the Library, I had a really neat idea for a pressure luck game because I love pressure luck games. That's probably, other than trick-taking games, I probably own more pressure luck games than any other genre. So I had this neat idea, I thought, and couldn't come up with a theme that wasn't morbid. So it's like, I want to be rescuing something that's valuable, but I don't want anything to die.
Okay.
You know, like I want it to be something that people care about losing if they lose it, but I don't want it to be like a tragedy, you know.
Makes sense.
And me being the nerd that I was browsing around the internet and encountered a meme talking about if you are still angry about the Library of Alexandria, you might be a book nerd. And at that moment, I had never been more sure of myself being a book nerd than any point in my life. Like it all jumped into crystal clarity. And at that point, I realized books are something that people care about a lot, including myself. But aren't inherently, like, if a book is gone, it is not a good thing, but it is not anyone's life. And you might risk your life to save books. And so that's kind of where that one married itself. Like I ran into a meme, and like the Kabuto Sumo story was really, I wanted to make a game for my son. He loved coin pushers, and I was watching a Japanese wrestling program, and they were talking about the Beatles emerging in the springtime, and this just like B-roll, like just this commercial roll before the event, you know, it's springtime in Japan, the cherry blossoms are falling, the Beatles have emerged, and like all this stuff, like nature documentary. And I'm sitting there watching these guys fight on a log, and I'm like, this is it. This is my game. Like instantly, like locked in. It's like I don't need to do any more research. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a brilliant connection, because everything since then has just been layering connections on connections on connections, and rifling through my pockets to come up with everything from historical quotes that we can base characters on, to professional wrestlers that we can kind of make homages to random pop culture things like the Murder Hornet being based on horror movies. That was a huge thing. Being able to incorporate just all the random stuff in my head. So that continues through the expansions and the various other things of that nature. So that's a very long-winded way of saying that kind of both.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And while we were chatting here, Tony, we got a raid from the Charity Board Gamer. So I want to say welcome to
awesome!
him and the rest of his community. Thank you so much for joining. For those that don't know, my name is Jess. I'm a board game Twitch streamer. I am joined by the wonderful House of Meeple, aka Joe and Abby. They are also board game Twitch streamers here, and we are chatting tonight with the wonderful game designer Tony Miller. And if you have any questions for him in the chat, please feel free to pop them in. Otherwise, just sit back and enjoy the cozy conversation. Thank you so much for coming over on the stream raid. So, there we go.
At the very least, you can enjoy me enthusiastically puppy dogging all over the stream.
I love it. All right, Tony, we got an important question from Panda. She asked, "What
Sure.
is your go-to snack for game night?" And I will also add your go-to beverage for game night.
Oh man. Again, it kind of depends on the crowd. If I am gaming with adults, then I often like a nice hard cider.
Okay.
I've also been known to indulge in mead. I'm a big fan of both of those things. And luckily, being in Oregon where I am, both of them are in abundance. I have my choice of both meads and ciders.
Yep. Do you have a go-to cider house or brand?
So for cider, there is a company called New West Cider that makes a brand called True Love.
Okay.
It is blackberries and blueberries and absolutely incredible. And then for mead, I actually live now less than half an hour away. I don't know if you'll be able to see this bottle.
Ooh, it's pretty.
Nope, it glares. So there's a place called Orrin Moore.
Okay.
They are in Roseburg, Oregon. They make all of their own mead on site. They have small batches that they do periodically. I am, since I've moved to this area, I've officially become a member of their like club. So I get like 3 bottles a quarter.
Okay.
I am working really hard to not go to more than 3 bottles a quarter because I really, really like it. But yeah, Orrin Moore, they don't really have a very large online presence. Like they're not really on Twitter or anything like that. They do have a website, but it's not really in this century. I want to try to help them with that at some point because I think they're really neat and I can't tag them in my social media to drive other people to give them business so that I can keep buying from them for many, many years to come. But they're amazing. I'm trying to remember what they're called again. I knew it at one point. The individual who makes the mead, she is truly fascinating and goes all over the country learning different techniques and messing around with different varietals of honey. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, she's really, it's a passion project for her. The fact that it is incredibly tasty is just to my benefit. And then if I'm gaming with my son, usually we end up either with bottles of SodaStream, like I have right here, or I will be drinking Coke Zero, which is kind of my big thing.
Okie doke. Snack. What's your snack?
Oh, go-to snack. So I am undiagnosed, but I am fairly positive I have ADHD, and I will often forget to eat if I am engaged in an activity that I really enjoy. So most board game days end with me, talking too long after the last game is over and having either myself leave or them leaving and realizing I haven't eaten in like 8 hours.
Oh boy.
So that's kind of the normal way that it ends up going, unfortunately. But if I am eating during gaming, pretzels are my big go-to in general. I like salty things, and pretzels meet that need, and they don't usually make a gigantic mess.
Yep, that's very true. Very true.
I like Snyder's of Hanover stuff a lot.
Ooh, are you
those are some good
stick?
pretzels.
Are you a pretzel stick or a twist kind of guy, Tony?
I like both. When I was younger, I was all about sticks. I have since grown to appreciate all pretzel types.
All
Snyder's
pretzels are welcome.
Yes. Snyder's has the like bites, the chunks.
Oh, okay.
And I'm a really big fan of those. I really like those in specific.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, Abby, my dear, what you got?
Quaid asks, what is your favorite book?
Ooh.
Oh man, I knew this was going to get asked. So, do I have to limit it to just one? Because
there are a couple.
I don't want to be that person who is indecisive and doesn't want to give an answer. But there are so many good books, y'all. Like, it's an absolute embarrassment of riches when it comes to the written word in our world at this point, and it's only getting better as the various voices that are writing in sci-fi and fantasy in particular continue just spreading out. There's only so many bearded white guys whose stuff I want to read regularly. Like, I do enjoy it as a bearded white guy. Like, that is where my background. Like, I read George R. R. Martin. I read all the other bearded white guys from back in the day. Stephen King only sometimes has a beard, but I read a lot of his stuff. But the ones that I am most interested in right now is there is an author. Her name is Fonda Lee, and she has written a series that starts with what is it? Is it Jade Legacy is the first book? It's a trilogy of books that's set in effectively a fantasy kung fu gangster universe.
Ooh.
Like, there are rival competing clans, and it's kind of like the governor Jade City. Thank you. Yes. They're competing clans, and Jade is like this mystical element that people who are native to the island can use to gain special abilities. It doesn't work for anybody else who isn't like born there. And so all of these clans control the Jade and used it to drive off the various colonial invaders who tried to take them over. And now they kind of have carved up the world as little crime syndicates. And it's got like, yes, it's got everything that I love about crime-based stories. I do like a lot. I'm a rogue. I like a lot of crime-based stories. Scott Lynch's Lies of Locke Lamora is on there. I no longer recommend Altered Carbon because Richard Morgan has revealed himself to be a trash human. But that kind of noir detective criminal type story is my big go-to. Another author that I absolutely love, and she also happens to be a fantastic person, is Casey Alexander, and they wrote a couple of books. Unfortunately, we're probably never going to get the rest of the series, which makes me absolutely heartbroken. But Casey wrote a couple of books that I absolutely love. Man, trying to color and think at the same time is not working. Let me pause real quick.
You're fine. You're fine.
Let me pause real quick. So specifically, I'm thinking of Necrotech and Nanoshock are the two books. They're both cyberpunk with a absolutely incredibly hardcore disabled protagonist. The stories are brutal, like absolutely adults only. For these particular stories, I tend to like things that are like that. And I think the thing that I related to most is that the main character, Rico, is somebody who feels like a real person to me, because Rico does things that Rico doesn't entirely understand why she does them. Or she has various like interactions with people in the story who she does not personally like, but like feels their charisma or has an affinity for them, even though like she knows logically that this is not a person who is good for her. So it's just this very interesting like insight inside someone's head. The Murderbot novels, I can't recommend this enough, but at this point everybody's recommending Murderbot by Martha G. Wells. Read all of them, the novelettes, the novellas, just do it. You will thank anybody who recommended that you do it later. I can't recommend those enough. And finally, to throw in one bearded white guy who I don't think gets enough credit, there is a series of books by Matthew Woodring Stover. And it starts with the book Heroes Die. It is called the Legacy of Kain series. It is probably it's definitely one of my favorite series of all time, but it is a blended sci-fi fantasy book where it is in a dystopian future world where everybody is ranked by caste. So the business castes are above everybody else. The leisure castes are above them. And the hero of our story is a man named Harry Michelson, except in the other world that they have discovered, which is a fantasy world, he is actually the most feared assassin of all time, Cain, who slays gods and overthrows kingdoms. But he was raised by a father with some very revolutionary ideas for a dystopian future, and starts to allow the empowerment that he feels in this fantasy world color his view of the world that he is in. As an actor, he's afforded certain extra privileges that other people of his cast don't get. And I will not spoil exactly how the story ends up, but let's just say that Harry does not get along with his dystopian world ruled by the ultra elite. So it's a series that a lot of people probably haven't read, but that I absolutely love, and I reread almost once a year.
Wow, that's a really good list of recs. Hopefully Quaid wrote them down.
Or hasn't read all of them already. If so, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right, Joe.
All right, let's see. So let's get the silly question out of the way because Chris has to be a troll no matter where I am. Tony, what's the better condiment for fries, ketchup or, in Chris's words, that nasty mayonnaise?
Am I in Europe at the time? Because it really kind of depends. Mayo here in the States is not the same as what they put on fries in Europe.
True. This is true.
European mayo is really, really good on fries, y'all. In the U.S., mostly, honestly, I usually just do salt and vinegar. But ketchup is good. But ketchup is acceptable. Like, ketchup is basically my son's fourth food group. Cheese noodles, what is it? Cheese noodles, ketchup, and pizza. Pizza's not a whole food group by itself. Probably bread at that point. So 2 carbs and then cheese and ketchup.
There you go.
Kind of his eatery. So we end up having a lot of ketchup in the house.
All right. Way to answer both. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But real question from Chris. Favorite wine varietal?
Wine varietal. Oh, this is tough. So, I did not have wine until much, much later in my life. Like, I was already well past legal drinking age before I had ever tasted wine. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I always anticipated that wine would be like alcoholic fruit juice. And then the first time I tried it and it wasn't, I was kind of crestfallen. So all that being said, I am somebody who fell in love with fruit wine in Kentucky.
Okay.
So I specifically like, the sweet, desserty, fruity type wines. I will drink the other ones, and I've since grown more of an appreciation for things that are drier. And I can understand what they're going for, especially like if I eat it with food. But if I'm just drinking a wine to enjoy a wine, it's probably just a wine variant of a cider, in all honesty.
Yep. Amanda Panda's right there with you, Tony.
Okay.
She's also a sweet fruit wine person.
They make really good ones over there, and I don't know why, because we had some really, really good ones. My parents live in Kentucky, and so
awesome.
We go up to Indiana, and there's some really good ones, and like out here they make really good wine, but it's entirely different out there.
Way
Um,
different.
To the point that like we'll buy some and ship it to us every
Yes.
year.
So there was when I lived in Kentucky, I lived in a very tiny town outside of Cincinnati, and 10 minutes away, less than 10 minutes away from me, there was a winery that we used to go to, and we would go to their tasting rooms, and we would leave with like 4 or 5 bottles at once, and it's all like sweet fruit wines. I absolutely adored them. I had never had a single bottle of theirs that I did not like. Then I moved to Oregon and ended up living in Oregon wine country. And it is much more the traditional wine. Not that there isn't a whole bunch of experimental stuff here, because there is. But it's much more traditional wines here. And like I said, I've grown to appreciate them. I now can understand what people are saying when they distinguish a good wine from a mediocre wine. It's and I've never had anybody try to force bad wine on me up to this point in my life. I've been lucky about that. So it's a whole thing. My mother and father-in-law are much more into traditional wine, and so they're all about coming and visiting the wineries whenever they come to visit us. So they book a day to do that.
Nice. Very, very nice. All right,
Awesome.
more questions from the chat, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
Quaid asks, so far, all of your games take place in your own unique universes. If you could play in any intellectual property sandbox, what would you like to design a game in?
All right. So there are all sorts of answers to this question, but the answer I'm going to give you is the one that I actually have designed a game for that unfortunately didn't end up going anywhere. So it's a terrible B movie that I absolutely love regardless of that fact, and that's John Carpenter's They Live. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I designed a game with my co-designer on Fire in the Library, John, for that IP. And we tried to lean heavily into the theming. Like the first player marker is a set of shades that people wore at the table. The action point system is bubblegum. So the phases is you would use all of your bubblegum to do things, and then once you were all out of bubblegum, you entered the kick-ass phase, because now you were all out of bubblegum.
I love that.
It's the entire thing was like, John and I watched this movie probably 10, 20 times, like freeze framing things, looking for little references and other like tiny details that we could put in and everything. And it's a cooperative game that takes place in the city, and as you're playing, the areas of the board flip over to go from the like what it looks like to us to what it looks like when you're wearing the glasses. So it gets more and more alien as time goes on, and they're more and more like the helicopter patrols become more frequent, and the various aliens show up more, and then alien soldiers show up versus regular aliens. And yeah, we had like a whole elaborate thing. We actually play tested it at Unpub for an entire weekend, and absolutely loved it. And as soon as I found out that somebody in the board game board game sphere had gotten the licenses to do it, I tracked them down at Gen Con and pitched it to them. And the response that I got, unfortunately, was, yeah, we've already got a game in mind for that IP. Sorry. And that kind of shelved the idea. And we've been so heartbroken that we haven't gone back and like rethemed it or done anything with it since then. But if I could design a They Live game, that would be the game that I would resurrect that design, and we would really do it up right to make it fit the property. If it's not that, anything in the Avatar universe, specifically Avatar The Last Airbender universe, let me clarify. Elemental benders, not blue people. Avatar. Anything in the Dragon Prince universe would be really cool and fun. I love both of those. Yeah, that kind of stuff. I'd love to design games for some of the books that I am into, but I've yet to even bother trying because I don't know that I am up for the challenge of designing for the types of books that I like. I would love to, though. And I'm kind of sort of doing wrestling IP in a weird crosswise kind of way. But if I could do like a wrestling promoter game where you are the promoter building your own federation, that's something I would love to do as well.
Ooh,
Make it a Euro
game.
Make it a Euro game instead of everybody doing the you're wrestling in the ring. Like in this case, you're the person booking the matches and everything. I would love to
that'd
do
be
something.
fun.
I'd play that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna
would I.
say. I was gonna say Joe and Abby are wrestling fans.
Well, my friend Aaron and I have talked about that one over and over again as something that like he'll ask me about it. So Tony, when are you designing your Euro game? And it's like, I don't know. I've thought about maybe trying to do something in the Kabuto Sumo universe, like designing a Euro game where you book the International Insect Wrestling Federation. And maybe come up with a couple of competing feds for people to book. But I haven't gotten any further than the initial brainstorming phase.
Yeah, that's awesome. Bless you. Quaid sounds
Thank you.
interested.
Well,
in
that needs to happen like yesterday. That
Yep.
sounds amazing.
Yeah. It never fails, Tony. Whenever we have guests on our evening streams here, we always inspire creativity or encourage developing ideas. So
Well, I am all about both of those things. So yes.
yeah. Chris says, let's get ready to bumble.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yep. There's your tagline. There it is.
I dig it. I dig it.
That's great.
All right, Abby, what you got?
I thought, was there one more from the chat that I looked at?
I think
Maybe there
there's
was.
a couple more in there.
Was there? I've probably gotten. Yeah, my chat moved. That's okay. What is the last game you backed on crowdfunding?
Oh, good gravy. I will have to look. So I am a big time proponent of crowdfunding. I understand that there's a lot of people who couldn't operate in the board gaming space without it. New Mill Industries, my publishing company, could not exist without crowdfunding. That kind of operating capital is something that we just don't have. So I tend to focus on smaller publishers like my own or friends Kickstarters specifically. Why can't I bring this up? I know that I'm currently backing the latest expansion for Sentinels in the Multiverse, because that's one of my favorite games of all time, and the definitive edition has resolved a lot of the issues that I had with it. Let me just bring it up on my phone, because then I don't have to try to navigate multiple windows.
James, which Steve Finn game was it? I know Dr. Finn does a lot of games. Which game was it?
Let me find it here. So Tether, which ends in about 8 hours, is the game that I am backing right now. The one that's about to end. It's from Mark McGee from the Game Designers of North Carolina.
Okay.
He's an absolutely awesome dude and runs their podcast that I've been a guest on. I'm one of the few non-North Carolinians to guest on the Game Designers of North Carolina podcast.
Whoa.
Which was a real honor. But it's a game that he designed. Looks like he's publishing How to Steam Broccoli is his publishing company. And then, the other recent ones in my history, I did. I'm backing Point City Deep Dive because I love the Flat Out Games crew. I know them personally and professionally.
Yep.
They helped with a lot of the playtesting for both Fire in the Library and Kabuto Sumo, so I love them all to death. I backed a Terry Moore comic book art item for my wife, a coffee table book. And then the All Play Board Game Tables Chomp Sale Couture Mindspace Kickstarter. And then Fork I backed from...
From Tate?
Yes.
Tate.
Absolutely. And Trick Taker Kings from Hiroyuki Yamamoto out of Japan. So a little bit eclectic there as far as stuff goes. But I back most of the All Play Kickstarters. They tend to make games that I like because we just have a similar vibe. And that's why Kabuto Sumo worked so well there.
Mm-hmm.
It felt right when I signed the contract with them, and I've never regretted that decision.
And that's awesome. Once you said that, Tony, Tate's ears must have been ringing because he just popped in the chat and said, "Thank you for your support."
Oh, awesome! I'm really excited to get Fork.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Fork's a good one. I've
Fork's a good one.
Yeah.
Hi, Tate.
Really
We
fun.
miss you. Hope you're doing good. And anyone else that's been lurking, I appreciate it so much.
Yes.
Alone Shark says that she backed all the All Play and Fork too. Back 3 out of the ones that you have mentioned, Tony. Same vibe. Love it.
That
Nice.
somehow doesn't surprise me, given So when I was in Kentucky, I was in gaming groups that included them and Shark and Taco Maniac. I played a lot of Netrunner with Taco Maniac. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. I lost a lot of Netrunner to Taco Maniac. But it was all fun because very good at showing me where my decks were terrible.
Yeah.
I am not the greatest at deck building, but I love Netrunner anyway.
That's too funny.
So.
That's too funny.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
what was the King's trick taking game called again? Panda wants to know.
It is. I think it's already over. Come on. It is Trick Taker Kings is the name of the Kickstarter. It's a, I guess, update side shoot of the game Trick Taker.
Okay.
With a little bit of additional cool stuff out of Japan. The designer had a pretty big hit with Trick Takers, and so this is one that adds some new wrinkles to it and includes English rules. So I'm very excited about that.
Shark says, "Don't worry, Tony. I lose all the games to Taco now. Not Netrunner because that would be a disaster, but all the others."
Oh no, I'm sure you absolutely destroy him at Netrunner.
Oh, that's funny.
Sure, you absolutely destroy him.
Oh my
at
gosh! And I
Netrunner.
just pulled up the Trick Taker Kings, and the artwork on the Kickstarter page is so adorable, Tony.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! I'll pop this in the chat for you, Panda. Don't worry. Don't worry. There we go. Awesome. All right. Is it back to me? I think we got through everybody's questions in the chat.
I think so.
I think so. We're on a roll. All right, Tony, do you have a favorite fan experience, like someone that you met in the hobby scene that you were like, "Oh my gosh, it's fill in the blank"?
Oh man, so many. This is. I promise this isn't a cop-out answer, but I'm going to start with the total cop-out answer that literally everybody that I have interacted with on a regular basis has been lovely. Like I don't have any like major complaints beyond complaints that intersect with other areas of existence. There are many people in the world I do not get along with, but most of the hobby gamers I have encountered are not amongst those people. That is a Venn diagram with very little overlap. And I try to keep it that way. But that being said, there's been a couple of experiences that really kind of floored me. And I want to bring up specific examples. So there's a let me find this. So the thing that probably touches me most, and this is just one of those things that kind of still to this day hasn't quite sunk in all the way, is that there are people who like my games a lot, and like do all sorts of cool stuff around my games in ways that I'm just not like I wasn't prepared for. So probably the two biggest is there's an individual in Japan. I'm not going to call out their specific Twitter handle because I don't want everybody to go bum rush their profile and everything. But they have started a Japanese wrestling federation using Kabuto Sumo. Like they have a Japanese Kabuto Sumo wrestling federation. They have a poster that they've created. They run tournaments with brackets. They
That's
like
amazing.
give recounts of each individual match. They've tweaked the rules so there's like they put a 10-minute timer on each one of the matches so that everybody has to move faster than they're comfortable with, so that the tournament matches can have guaranteed results. And like they've gone to elaborate ends to like showcase this game, and their account is not very large. They aren't like, you know, doing this to crowds of adoring fans or anything, but the idea that someone would love my game enough that they're coming up with actual characters, like personalities for the various insects in my game. Like they know which ones are heels and which ones are faces. They have like, you know, like, you know how in fighting games back in the day, whenever you would beat somebody, it would cut to the screen with the two characters and the one is beaten up and the other is fine. And the person who won says some like line of dialogue. Like they have that kind of stuff. Like at the end of the match, you know, Sisyphus is very quiet and doesn't say anything. He'll just kind of like smile and walk away. He's the enigmatic one. Nobody knows whether he's a face or a heel. He's just kind of there to fight. And then like you've got the old guard, Kimarite, who is the like old veteran, the ace of the division, who's taken Mighty Jaw Mike under his wing as this young lion who he's training up to be the best sumo wrestler there is. And like just all these elaborate backstories and fiction and like explanations for the matches and everything. And it is one of the most like touching things I have ever experienced as a designer, is to see somebody create off of my art, like to spin off of my design to create something totally unexpected and wholly different. And it just blows my mind. And then there's another individual who I'm trying to find them on Board Game Geek, but I'm notoriously bad on Board Game Geek these days. There's an individual who writes a blog on Board Game Geek, and they play a lot of solo games and stuff like that. But one of the things that they've done recently is they've come up with a lot of like solo challenges for Fire in the Library. Like every like month or couple of months, they announce Harold Selenay is the name on Board Game Geek.
Oh, yes.
I believe their name is Rachel.
Yes.
I have never I have never spoken directly with Rachel, but I read every single one of the blogs that she posts on Board Game Geek. And all of the promo cards that she has created for Fire in the Library, and all of the alternate challenges and alternate uses for tools and things like that. Like it's amazing to me to find things like that out in the corner and again, like I mostly lurk. I don't usually, like, I'm bringing attention to them here, so I guess, you know, that's a thing. Maybe they'll find out about it or maybe they won't, but like I don't want to disrupt their flow or harsh their buzz, but I think what they're doing is awesome and very, very cool. And I, you know, those kinds of moments with people in the hobby industry are what really like blow my mind.
That's amazing.
And then, you know, I would be absolutely remiss if I did not mention T. T is one of my favorite human beings in the entire world. T encouraged me back when T was a big reviewer on YouTube, and I was some nobody in Kentucky who really liked their videos on ski lifts. You know, I watched T's live streams. I followed along on all of T's reviews. You know, any board game that could be reviewed in an airport, T was right on it. And was absolutely my favorite reviewer. When I ended up actually meeting T in person, they were so gracious and wonderful and incredible because I was a great big fanboy dork game designer who absolutely didn't know how to act or what to say. And T was so chill and so friendly and so comfortable just being themselves wherever they were in whatever space they were in. And like the first time I met them, I ended up wandering around the halls of Origins. T is wearing a purple Rhino Hero cape. And we're just wandering around the halls of Origins, and T is introducing me to like everyone. Like it's just been that way ever since. When I eventually moved to Oregon, like when T was still live streaming, I was on some of those live streams and got to talk to T's audience and play games with T and Steve and John and many of the other people that they had guest on there. And that was an absolute blast. I was honored to even be invited, let alone included. And T is somebody who has always made me feel welcome in this hobby, regardless of how well known I was in it at any given time. The first pieces for Kabuto Sumo were cut on a chop saw in T's backyard.
That's awesome.
we went and got dowels from a local hardware store, and T cut them on their chop saw, and then I took them home and sanded them and painted them and all of that stuff. Like the first actual Kabuto Sumo pieces existed because T was like, yeah, you've got a good thing here. I'm going to help you make this come true. And yeah, that's just who T is. T helps other people make their dreams come true. And they did that for me, and I will never forget it. Ever. Yeah. Ever. So, yeah. Okay, let's get back to coloring and less crying.
No, that's very kind, Tony.
Oh, you're fine.
We had T on our stream a couple weeks back, so we know how amazing they are, and I have personal experience of their support for me as well in this industry. So everything you said is 100% true.
And I don't want the silent awesomeness that is Steve, who is always in the background supporting everybody, to go unnoticed as well.
Yeah.
Steve is like one of my favorite human beings on the planet, and both of them are some of my dearest friends, even though I don't get to see them that much anymore.
Yeah.
And haven't really seen them much anymore since the pandemic.
Agreed. Cheatin' Steve, there you go. Yep.
Yes.
Steve. I mean, he's got a theme song for crying out loud.
Yes. And merch.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's true.
I don't have merch. So
Ben No Sono Prop says yes. After PAX, Steve and I are new best friends. Agreed. Yeah. No, that was everything you said about T is absolutely true. So we can definitely verify for that. But those are such cool stories though, Tony, and how people that are appreciative of your art and everything have expounded on it in ways that are positive, right? Like there could be a way that people could like twist it and distort it to something that's not kind, but like everything that you've done has been like such a positive thing. So that's really cool.
I don't know. It's one of those things, like I design games partially because I can't do anything else. Like I have to design games. And then I design games because there's that magical moment where like the game disappears and people are just happy at the table, and I live for that moment. Like I love walking. I used to love walking around conventions and like sniping people who were playing one of my games at a table. Like not let them know that I was watching, but be watching just to see them enjoying it, because that's what really, like, that's why I design games. Like, right. And yeah, it's like there's nothing on earth like it. Absolutely nothing on earth like it. I love it so much.
That's awesome. All right, so I'm gonna have Joe go get our special friend for the evening, but Abby, go ahead and take your
Sure.
question.
I will be back.
Next question.
What is one piece of advice you'd give to someone just starting out?
Well, I guess that depends on exactly what you're just starting out with.
Let's go designing a game.
If you're starting out with designing a game, I would say the first thing to focus on is to get something that you can move around on a table onto a table. You don't need to have all the rules figured out. You don't need to have all of the cards written up. You can sit down with index cards, markers, pencil. You can do all that stuff. Like, designing in a spreadsheet is something that a lot of people do, and for me, theoretical designing like that always ends up not matching the experience at the table that I'm looking for. And so for me, the best thing that I've been able to do with designing is to just like get some pieces that you're interested in working with, bring it to the table, and Calvin ball it. That may be like an obscure reference, but like Calvin Ball is a game where you make up the rules while you're playing it.
Calvin and Hobbes, everyone. Calvin and Hobbes.
Yes. You just bring everything that you might want to the table and see what feels good. Like, Kabuto Sumo started out as a sheet of printer paper that I had drawn a rectangle on. And then I grabbed a whole bunch of pieces from my copy of Catacombs and some crokinole boards and stuff like that. And we like sat down, and my son and I just started pushing pieces on to see what was fun. And like, everything that I learned from those sessions were things that shaped Kabuto Sumo for the entire rest of its development. Like, it's fun to push pieces on. It's even more fun when they fall off. Also, it's a lot easier to say that this piece fell off if it actually falls than if you're arguing with a 7-year-old about whether it's leaning or not. So I knew that the board had to be raised. The initial concept was more of a coin pusher, where you were pushing discs off of the end of the thing and you were scoring based on what you pushed off. And like, that's mostly shuffleboard. And my son likes more competition, direct head-to-head competition in his games. And so like, now suddenly we have pieces on the board. This is your piece. This is my piece. Beetles didn't even exist as part of it at that point. It was just, what is my son gonna like? And we just played around with it until we came up with something that he liked doing. And all of this kind of came into my mind from two places. Senfeng Lim and Jay Cormier, the Bamboozle brothers, they talk about getting like the shortest time to prototype is one of the biggest benefits that you can possibly have. Like, don't spend your entire existence creating a prototype just so you can get it to the table and 5 minutes later find out it doesn't work. And the other thing is when the Wii was incredibly popular. And so it's one of the only systems that had motion controls that was successful. And so when they were designing for the Wii, Nintendo themselves sat down, and the first thing they did is they gave the Wiimotes to a bunch of kids and told them to do things that were fun. And then they recorded what motions the kids made that were fun. Or, like, if you were going to bowl with this, how would you do it? And then watched how the kids would bowl with the Wiimote. And then they baked those in. Instead of going, well, what are you doing in this game? You're shooting a bow and arrow. Okay, well, how does somebody shoot a bow and arrow? Let's simulate that using these motion controls and try to replicate the exact experience. Instead, they were specifically looking for things that were fun to do inherently without having to be directly tied to anything. And I think that's one of the things that I try to do in my designs. Like, I really like pulling cubes out of a bag. I find the reveal of what did I get to be a very like rush of adrenaline, whether it's good or bad. I really enjoy that experience. And so that just went into Fire in the Library. My son likes, pushing those pushing games in arcades. And so like, okay, let's incorporate that, but it can't be exactly that because those are like rigged gambling games. So we've got to come up with something else that uses something similar that's fun to do. And so, yeah, that's for designers. Those would kind of be my, those are kind of my ideas as far as like how I would get started as a designer and just create, like bring stuff to the table and just create.
Very good. Very good. All right, friends, this is our special segment for the night. I'm going to get our nice little theme song going here so everybody can have a chance to listen. This is a theme song written by the wonderful Omari Akil.
Yes.
It is the Phantom Meeple song. Sir Phantom, you have upgraded your wardrobe, I see.
I wouldn't necessarily call it an upgrade.
I would.
I had to get my normal tie dry cleaned, so Abby kindly enough got me a substitution for the night.
I think it's beautiful.
It is perfect. I recommend you wearing that from now on instead of your actual tie.
I mean, we keep evolving this, so I mean, what are you gonna?
What do you expect? All right, take it away, Sir Phantom.
All right. Good evening, Tony. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty darn good at this point. I've been really enjoying myself.
Glad to hear it. So, as Jess said, we have come to the part of the interview. As James Lipton has done before me, Bernard Pavot before him, it is time for the Sir Phantom Lipton questionnaire. Are you ready?
As ready as I will ever be.
All right, fantastic. Then here we go. What is your favorite board game?
Android Netrunner.
Okay. What is your least favorite board game?
Ooh, this is something I don't have a snap answer for this one. Okay, I want to be snarky just because I think it'll make Suze grumpy and say Kalis.
Okay. What
we love
board
Suze,
game?
by the way.
Yeah, we do love Suze.
Oh, I love Suze as well. I'm just throwing that out there because I know that will make her grumpy. I don't think it's actually my least favorite board game. I just can't think of one and want to keep the bit going.
No, that's completely fair. Okay. What board game makes you feel the most happy?
Oh. Wow. Okay. This is kind of word association, but I'll say Happy Salmon, actually.
Okay. What board game makes you feel the most sad?
The Grizzled.
Okay. What board game components do you love?
Oh, man. Cards. If it has cards, I'm probably interested in knowing more about it. Definitely cards.
Okay. What board game components do you dislike?
That's also kind of hard. Let me think. Oh, those little clip things from Betrayal at House on the Hill that never stay where you put them. If they worked, they'd be fine. But the fact that they are completely non-functional for the only reason they exist in the game drives me up a wall.
I think that's the best answer we've gotten for that
Yep.
question so far. That's fabulous. Okay. What board game is so bad that its name should become a curse word?
Oh, man. All these questions about bad games. Board games so bad. I should have saved Kalis for this. No. Let me see. Board game that is so bad. Oh, I don't know if I can consider this a board game. What is the name of that? I'm trying to remember the name of that. So there's one game that I walked away from ever in my life, and it was supposed to be a board game that was supposed to teach people how to manage their finances, and I'm trying to remember the name of it off the top of my, but it was one of those like pseudo educational board games, and I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Wasn't Rich Dad Poor Dad, was it? I'm pretty sure there's like a self-help guru that I think
Cash Flow.
Oh,
Yes.
Flow. Okay.
Cash Flow. Cash Flow should be how to get out of the rat race. Yes, it is Rich Dad Poor Dad. Cash flow. That board game's name should be a curse word.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That does roll off the tongue.
I like that. Okay.
Cash flow.
What? I like it. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
What I like to attempt. All right, let's go for pure wish fulfillment here rather than trying to use my rational mind. I would say I think it would be, and this may be a little like stereotypy of me being a dwarf and all, I would really like to experiment with like metal smithing. I watch metalsmithing videos online, like hours of them, like people making knives, people making wrought iron gates, people just doing things with metal. And it just, that kind of stuff absolutely blows my mind. I would love to do something in that field.
Okay. What profession would you not like to do?
Other than my own?
That depends on you.
Yeah, I'm not big on it right now. No. What profession would I not like to do? Okay. Landlord, because I don't think I could live with myself.
All right. And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
If heaven exists, what would I like to hear God say? Let's see. So here's your map. Free play is in Hall 2. The Artist Alley is over here in Hall 3. That's kind of what I would love. I would love for him to introduce me to heaven as a gigantic convention in the sky.
And there you have it, my friends, the Sir Phantom Lipton questionnaire.
Yay!
Good job,
Those-
Tony.
Those are some really great and genuinely difficult questions.
They're meant to be. They're
dug it.
supposed to make you think.
They did. Like, some of them I have just... It's funny. Like, some of them I have really easy answers for. Like, I know what my favorite game of all time is, but I don't spend a lot of time thinking about my least favorite game.
Yes.
I don't know what that says about me, but I don't really think about that.
It doesn't say anything bad either way, but
No.
I mean, as many times as we've done the questionnaire so far, it has definitely made some people think, and
Yep.
it's kind of great that way because you kind of get like this spitball question that you're not necessarily expecting, which is great.
Yeah. On the spot. We've also had folks say, "Oh man, you should have told me the question so I could write my answers down." It's like, no, we want the top of the
that
head.
defeats the purpose. Yeah, we want your
we want the
like
K-list.
right off the
We
cuff.
want the
No, I like the... And again, like, that's mostly to mess with Suze. That's
Yeah.
not a real
But that's
answer.
fair. I mean, Suze would appreciate that. We all know Suze. She loves it.
And if it gets back to Suze, I will hear about it. And I'm fine with
I'm
that.
sure it will somehow, some way. It will get back to her.
I'm sure it will, and she will stick her tongue out at me. And I will add in my defense that the new version that was released, I like much, much better.
Yeah.
It is more to my taste. So it's not all Kalis, just the original.
There we go. Clarification, everyone. Clarification.
There it is.
She's not going to accept that, but that's okay. She doesn't have to. She's allowed to have her opinion, and I'm allowed to have mine, and that's perfectly fine.
That's all you can ask for.
All right, Tony, question for you before we wrap up. We only have a couple more questions before we sign off for the evening. What is one thing within the board gaming hobby that you would wish could improve or change?
Improve or change? I'm now gauging how serious I want this answer to be.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I've been fairly... I enjoy being fairly jovial, but rather than narrowing it down to any one particular thing, let me say that if there was one thing in this hobby that I would change, I would change the how do I articulate this? That there was more of a drive by the individuals who run larger conventions to protect the health and or safety of the individuals who attend their events. This isn't just board gaming. GDC's out there now too, and I know that this is also a concern there. But to me, a convention is a place for everybody who's interested in things to come and get together. And that cannot happen if the people there are not safe. Mm-hmm. Whether that's they are not safe from a global pandemic, or they are not safe from individuals who are specifically targeting others with hatred, or whether the convention itself is not taking care of policing areas that it should be. I think that any convention at this point in time that does not have an officially posted code of conduct that is 100% broadcast and identifiable and posted and known by the people who are attending it, I think that's absolutely unacceptable. In 2023, I cannot imagine why anybody would do this. I do not believe that the individuals who refuse to abide by a code of conduct, I do not believe that their business is significant enough to be worth accommodating them in this way. I think you would get more people attending cons who would feel safer if this stuff was present. I think you would get a larger diversity of people attending cons, and that includes like parents being willing to bring their kids to conventions. I think that the conventions themselves have kind of washed their hands of all of the events that occur around the convention, and I understand that they can't like logistically or legally be everywhere, but they do approve what events happen, and maybe considering not approving a bunch of events that feature alcohol in large public forums might be a good idea. Like, I am somebody who does like to recreationally drink, and at the same time, I would not miss it at all in a group of 5,000 people who are there to talk about one of my absolute passions in life. So yeah, it's one of those things that's been a sticking point in the industry for a long time, and a lot of the conventions very quickly returning back to normal in regards to COVID response and not requiring masks and not checking vaccines, and we just want to sweep that whole period of time under the rug and pretend it didn't happen and go back to the way things were before. And I think that's irresponsible. So yeah, that's kind of my soapbox. I'm sorry if that was bringing the tone of everything down, but it's one of those things that I feel like conventions are obligated to do if they want to run major events. And if you want to run, like, small local conventions are doing this right in comparison. And, if the small local conventions can do it with less staff, less funding, and less everything, then the larger conventions should be able to do stuff like this as well. Yeah. And I get there's a matter of scale, but I don't want to hear the list of excuses. And seeing that someone is actually trying would, at a minimum, be a big deal. So, we'll see. I haven't completely lost hope. I think that conventions themselves are wonderful, wonderful things, and people should not be afraid to go there, or there's no reason to be having them. So that's enough on that subject, I think. I've gone on long enough.
That's fair. That's very fair to say. Very fair. All right, Joe, Abby, anything else you want to ask Tony before we sign off for tonight?
Yeah, I haven't gotten to ask my favorite question of the interview yet,
right.
So I got to put that out there. All right. Do you still consider yourself a player first, a designer second, or has the creative process overtaken the hobby aspect of gaming for you?
That's a tough one, because at this point, like, I'm not doing as much of either as I would like. I would say that at this point, probably more designer than player, but that's mostly a factor of time rather than anything else. Like when designing, a lot of the time that you would spend playing ends up being spent designing or working on designs. I would love to play games more often than I do. I would also love to design more often than I do, but there's only so much time that exists as a fully employed adult with a child and all of the responsibilities that entails. Oh, and a dog and 2 cats. So they don't take up nearly as much brain power to take care of, but they are there. So yeah, I would say I'm probably more in the realm of designer these days, but that's mostly a function of time.
Okay.
Well, there we go. I think we have dive deep into who is Tony Miller and what he does in this board gaming space.
So.
This has been a fantastic conversation, Tony. Have you enjoyed yourself tonight?
I have absolutely enjoyed myself. I hope that my long-windedness hasn't driven anyone away, but I did want to put this up. I don't know if you'll be able to see it because of the glare.
Oh, it's coming along.
Oh, it is coming along.
Ooh, I like it.
That's cool. I like it.
Very cool.
So I'm getting there. But yeah, it was interesting to try to answer questions while coloring. I've never tried to engage those two parts of. I've never tried to engage those two parts of my brain at the same time, and I think it actually made both a little easier in some ways and harder in others.
Good. So, we've heard people say that it's helpful with the distraction to have something to do while you're talking.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a really clever idea. If I was still doing an interview podcast, I would steal it. But I am not. So your fancy ways are safe.
Nice.
Well, you are always welcome to borrow it, to just, give credit where credit is due. And
absolutely.
There you go. But yeah.
What was it? All wisdom is plagiarism? Is that what
Plato
said? I think.
Something like that.
T-shirt. There you go. So, Tony, what do you have coming up in the publishing space, in the gaming space, where folks can check out what you are doing?
As far as the design space, we have recently put Kabuto Sumo into Target. This is like one of those bucket list goals for me. And it is a special edition called Beetle Brawl. They recently had several of the regular edition, and they've been selling through them in order to get to Beetle Brawl. And this weekend I had the first official sighting for Beetle Brawl. And so, yeah, that was a very, very cool thing to have that happen. So it has a Target exclusive character. I should say retail exclusive. It's not going to be Target exclusive indefinitely. I do not know who else will end up carrying it, but there should be the new edition. It has a big banner that says Beetle Brawl on it to help you distinguish it from the original edition of the game. So that's really cool design-wise. As far as publishing-wise, we have our next New Mill Kickstarter coming up for Tall Tales from Rand Lemley coming up in April. Very, very much right around the corner. If you like trick-taking games, then I suggest you check it out because it's one of the better ones I've played. Rand is like a lifelong trick-taking game fan, and so to be able to put one of his design out into the world is something that really, really exciting for me. He did all of the artwork. He did all the graphic design. Like, he truly, like, one-man banded this, and we're just helping him get it out into the world and share it with people. And I'm so excited to be able to do that. And as far as where you can find me and all of the things that I'm up to, I am not on Twitter as much as I used to be, but that is still the best place to find me. I am at Bearded Rogue on Twitter. if you want to see any of the stuff that I am working on, game design wise, publishing wise, or just any of the various social justice causes that I am involved with or care about, you will definitely find it on that Twitter feed. So
Very, very cool. That's a lot to look forward to. So I'm excited to see how that all pans out. So that's really, really exciting. Joe, Abby, what do y'all got going on for streams this week?
What do we got going on? So tomorrow, since we just learned it and it's fresh in our brains, we're going to be playing Rebuilding Seattle from WizKid Games, created by Quinn Brander, local Vancouver game designer. His first design. He told us a huge story, pretty much, worked on it for the last 8 years, and it was supposed to take 2, and finally got it published. So we're going to be playing that tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Thursday is going to be episode 50 of the Panda and Phantom show, so tune into that on Amanda Panda's channel at noon on Thursday. Then Thursday evening at 7 p.m., I'll be over on Geek Girl Con's channel playing Forspoken on PS5. And then on Friday, we'll be back on our channel, and we're going to be playing Oros from Lucky Duck Games. So a lot of stuff this week. And then it is also TLN weekend. On Sunday of TLN weekend, I think our spots at 4 p.m. Pacific will be doing votes for women from Fort Circle Games. So a lot of good stuff coming up.
yes.
Very, very cool. Yes, because it's Women's History Month, so we are celebrating that through TLN. So if y'all are interested in learning more about the schedule and everything, I will go ahead and pop the links there in the chat. For me, friends, you can catch me back here on Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific. I'm going to be playing some cat-themed games in honor of the 1-year anniversary of Gamer Kitty Soma and her passing. So to celebrate her and all her craziness, I'm going to be playing some cat-themed games on Wednesday. And then Friday, I'm going to be doing some Chronicles of Crime right here on stream, so you all can join me in solving the mystery. I will have some special guests in that as well, and that will be at 11 a.m. Pacific time. But for all the things that you're not sure about, where to check us out, our social media handles are right there on screen for everyone. And so now, friends, I'm going to send you over on a raid train. Who do we got that is live? We can send everybody over.
Let's see. Benita's on. Heart Board Games is on. Board Game Spam is on.
Ooh, let's send us
yeah,
over
so you got your
Andrew and
got your
Pia.
choice of
Let's
those three.
do that.
All right.
Board Game Spam. What are they playing tonight, Joe?
I believe they're playing Machikoro 2, I think.
That's what it looked like, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, once again,
Yeah, they're doing Machikoro 2.
Nice. Very cool. This has been fantastic. Thank you again, Tony, for the lovely conversation. Always enjoy having you here. You're welcome back anytime. Even if you just want to sit and color and chat. It's always good.
That's a heck of an invitation. I may just take you up on that. Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely.
By all means.
And thank you, Joe and Abby, for being wonderful co-hosts, as always. Until next time, friends, stay safe, enjoy your board games, be kind to one another, and we'll catch y'all on the next stream. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.